Where I've read these, these where to get a chair.
Oh, I think we. I said I could. I think actually I brought an extra just in case. That's how we're Okay. You should have said it to me because I wasn't prepared. Okay, so I think we're. Sure.
Lane, you ready? Sorry, no, yeah. Well, it's go time, gentlemen. Yeah, right. You're proud. Yes. Maybe you're proud.
The Honorable, the Supreme Court.
Thank you all very much. Please be seated.
Good afternoon. Governor Scott, members of the court, now Judge, soon to be Justice Waples, your family, judges, legislators, friends, Vermonters. We are here today for a historic event, but I would be remiss if I didn't say hello to one more person who's not here. Roy Jair, Nancy's dad, I know you're watching. On behalf of all of us and the citizens, for what you and your late wife have done in raising this fine woman, thank you. I've been asked to speak today, and I'm talking as a trial judge. The Chief Superior Judge has been asked to speak on behalf of the judges. So I surveyed the judges and said, do you have any comments about Judge Waples? Yeah, they poured in. But what was interesting was they were very consistent. Certain words kept coming up. The one word that came up the most was kindness. It reminded me also that Judge Waples would talk about influences in her life and her mom. And she talked about that in life you regret many things, her mom told her. You'll regret some of the things you did and some of the things you didn't do, but you will never regret being kind. She also would quote her mom for saying that people will not always remember what you said, but they will remember how you make them feel. These weren't just words to her. They were that plan for life, because that is how we on the trial bench saw her and see her. The other word that came up, warmth. When there was a new judge appointed, she would call that judge and talk to them. And judges commented that it was an absolute thrill. That's the judge's words, a thrill to get a call from Judge Waples. And it was such a warm, welcoming call from a new colleague. There was also times it wasn't such a wonderful occasion, such as when one of her colleagues lost their mother who had passed away. Judge Waples was sharing the building with that judge, and she walked in carrying an orchid. This judge does not have a green thumb. And she took the time to talk about his mom and about life, and to tell him that don't put more than 2 ice cubes in the orchid per week. The feeling that he got from that was something that he carries forward. And I can tell you, Judge Waples, the orchid is doing well. The other word that came up was confidence. She helped her colleagues gain confidence. Like the brand new judge during her orientation who had never met Judge Waples. She meets her for the first time and she is so impressed. This judge has concluded that that is who I want to be as a judge. And so during the hearings that day, Judge Waples says, would you like to do a hearing? Judge says, sure. She takes the file. This is before Odyssey, these things called paper files we had. She takes the file, puts the robe on, and walks up to the bench. Guess what happens? She trips on the robe and she falls. But she catches herself and holds up the file. She does the hearing and she comes off, in her words, ashamed and embarrassed. And that's not how Judge Waples saw it. Judge Waples told her that she fell so wonderfully and she did it with such grace. Because that's the positive that she brings. The other word that came up was cheerfulness. One judge said that they will always remember her bonhomie. Now, for those of you who would need to go look it up, Webster's defines bonhomie as good-natured, easy friendliness. And it further gives that example of what it means, and it says, an undying bonhomie radiated from her. So can someone send me a picture of Judge Waples from today so I can send it to Webster so they have a photo of what that looks like? And finally, the other comment that we received was that she had a significant impact on the staff. It's difficult working in the courts. It's difficult in all of our lives right now. But her cheer, her joy, and the way she treated the staff is something that radiated with them. And as this judge said, her skillfulness in interacting with staff, attorneys, and litigants is the court's loss, but it's the Supreme Court's gain. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Paul Ryber.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Last time I did this with hearing aids, everything came off, not just the nose. Somebody over here understands you. Governor, you too, huh? It's, it's a long life and a happy one, and there goes the pen. Let's just reflect. Today is tax day. This was your choice. Easter weekend, Good Friday, first day of Passover, halfway through Ramadan, and we're here to swear in Nancy Waples. Good weather, gorgeous weather. Gorgeous weather. It's going to snow. It's gorgeous weather, Bill. It's good to see you, Bill. So I have some remarks here I want to read to you, and I will in a second. But the first thing I wanted to do, in addition to welcoming the governor, Governor Scott, it's great to have you here. Governor Douglas, when he came over to swear me in once, asked me whether or not coming into this courtroom was a breach of separation of powers. I said, I don't think so. I still don't think so. So we're glad to have you here. I have here the official Journal of the Senate for Friday, March 25, 2022. Nancy, I want to give this to you. The page that is marked is the vote, which, by the way, was 27-0. I think that's a great part of what is going to be your legacy. So good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations to my friend Nancy Waples and to her family, her husband Greg, their sons, her father who is tuning in online, and to all of you who are watching online and not able to be here in person. Today, the first woman of color to be put forward to a seat on the Vermont Supreme Court, an American of Chinese heritage, is sworn in as a justice of the Vermont Supreme Court. This is a banner day for our state. Nancy Waples' appointment breathes fresh air into the foundational notion of equal justice under the law. Today, we celebrate through the regular order of succession according to the law, the seating of the daughter of immigrants, whose vision and courage brought their family to this country, a woman herself who in every respect reflects our highest ideals of what it means to be an American and a Vermonter. Nancy, I know you have faced tremendous challenge to get to this point, settling in the U.S. with your family at age 9. Your story of working in your parents' restaurant and then college and law school where you distinguished yourself is an inspiration. As a member of this noble profession, a person of integrity and character, you at first were a practicing lawyer, then a judge, now a Supreme Court justice. Isn't this how we as a nation were built? Our founders themselves were immigrants. This is important to remember. So today we're here for the governor to swear in a gifted judge and to welcome her to the court. And given the last 2 years, this gives me a sense of comfort. There's a sense of normalcy about it, and I like that. But in important ways, it is not normal because this is a new dimension to our traditions with the seating of this Supreme Court justice. We should be proud of what our state has achieved through collaborative effort. The good faith and collaborative effort of many have made our state what it is. Collaboration, collective thinking, these are intrinsic to Vermont. Our institutions demonstrate this time and again. We have hope. The governor, the Senate, and the Judicial Nominating Board have done their jobs. Thank you, Governor, and thank you, each and every one of you who served and contributed to the process of appointing a new justice. You exercised an even hand, respected the process, and therefore the Constitution and the people of our state. You discharged your responsibilities under the law. The American commitment to the rule of law is fabled. James Madison famously wrote in Federalist number 51, "Justice is the end of government. It ever has been and ever will be pursued until it be obtained or liberty be lost in the pursuit." His collaborator, Alexander Hamilton, is said to have called justice the first duty of society. Equal justice under the law without fear or favor is our touchstone. The system that dispenses justice critical to our freedom. So what is a good judge then? Yale professor Akhil Amar notes in his book, America's Unwritten Constitution, that Madison in Federalist number 55 assigns to those who assume high office sufficient virtue. The professor asked then, what sorts of women and men are needed as public servants to mind the Constitution on a daily basis? Persons, he says, of discernment and ability, but also crucially, persons of honor, rectitude, and conscience. Honor, rectitude, and conscience. These are also the ideals of our democratic system of self-government. It is beyond debate that we enrich ourselves and strengthen our commitment to the principles of democracy when we are joined in our work by those who embrace these qualities and who hail from different backgrounds. Through diversity, we see more clearly the promise of the Constitution. Two additional qualities of a good judge are critical thinking and humility. Critical thinking involves the unbiased analysis and evaluation of all available facts, evidence, observations, and arguments submitted to the court to form a judgment. Humility requires judges to be open to consideration that their conclusions may be wrong, and to remember that they are public servants above all else. These qualities are reflected in the steady hand of the judge that honors legal process and civil discourse. This is an important focus of government broadly and especially good jurists. There is a marked lack of this commodity, however, civil discourse in our nation today. Some of what we see in politics among people of power and privilege is actually uncivil discourse, and we have seen how it can damage democracy. Hamilton, in Federalist Number 1, warned about those who engage in rude and impolite verbal exchange, uncivil discourse. He said there that this type of language is used by those who intend to increase the number of their, this is a quote, to increase the number of their converts by the loudness of their declamations and the bitterness of their invectives, hostile to the principles of liberty. He called these exchanges the stale bait for popularity at the expense of the public good. Stale bait, indeed. Some of the bad-mannered and rude language we sometimes hear in the public square demonizes immigrants, but their perspective is at odds with the founders. In 1784, George Washington set the standard for how we should think about immigrants to this country. This is what he said: "The bosom of America is open to receive not only the opulent and well-known stranger, but the oppressed and persecuted of all nations and religions, whom we shall welcome to participate of all our rights and privileges." And his idea was not novel. The Declaration of Independence and its litany of grievances complained that the king was engaged in preventing immigrants from entering the new land. Here's what it says: "He, the king, has endeavored to obstruct the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither." And later, Abraham Lincoln, in a speech in 1858, reflecting on our founding, made the point that not every American is descended from people who wrote the Declaration of Independence, but we are nevertheless attached to it and to each other, because, as he said, when we look through that document, you find these words, which you all know. "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women, every person is created equal." And with that, Lincoln laid claim to the idea that we stand in an important relationship to each other. We are connected by what he called a moral sentiment. Through the relationship we bear to each other with those words and to those who authored the Declaration. And so Lincoln said, "We all," that includes Nancy, Greg, their sons, Nancy's father, and every one of us, "have this right to claim, as though we were blood of the blood and flesh of the flesh, with those who came before." Those are his words. Those words are an inspiration, I would suggest to you, to every discerning person of principle. But candidly, the principles of democracy, and in particular, the system of justice in this country, is under attack, an attack on democracy itself here and abroad. While we celebrate this moment in our state's history, I cannot speak of these ideals without acknowledging the horror we see in Ukraine and the injustice at home. The evil perpetrated in Ukraine against innocent people, defenseless people who are attacked and gunned down in the streets and in their homes without provocation or justification, offends humanity. And at home, I have to acknowledge the threat to the courts exists. A significant challenge to the independence of the third branch comes from the politically driven Senate confirmation process of the U.S. Supreme Court justices. A recent survey by Pew Center found that over the last 3 years, favorable view of the U.S. Supreme Court has declined 15 percentage points. There is broad skepticism that the justices on that court are influenced are not influenced by politics. Confirmation is a daunting process, and the aim is to criticize the judicial nominee in that process in Washington. But these efforts by powerful people who reduce the confirmation process to pure politics, a confirmation hearing should be about learning how a person will judge, not how she handles browbeating. This point is not a partisan one. No nominee comes away unscathed from that process, but it concerns me that that behavior, focused on political points, undermines all courts. All courts. 2 weeks ago, through the parallel federal process to seat a new U.S. Supreme Court justice, senators sought to attack Justice Jackson, a person of color, the nominee to the court. This was an effort to attract voters who are disaffected with government. The irony is that their actions are an example of why, for many, government is failing them. Their behavior, frankly, was appalling. It gave the impression judges are persuaded not by legal arguments, but by some claimed political affiliation, or maybe by the rich and powerful. Their actions undermine the authority of judges and demean our democratic principles. Such actions degrade the public's faith in the systems of justice in this state and across the land. The courts are a branch of government, not a political branch. And respect for the courts, respect for justice, is a responsibility of government and every person. But Vermont is strong. We're a hardy bunch, and our state stands as an example to others. We're not perfect, but think of this. Through the process of the nominating and confirmation procedure that we follow, where the J and B qualifies, the governor appoints, and the Senate confirms, note that 4 of our members of the court were appointed first as a trial judge by the governor of one party, then to the Supreme Court by the governor of the opposite party. And it was not consistently the same. For example, first by a Democrat and then a Republican. Nancy Waples is one of those who have been appointed by governors of opposite parties. And she has been a great judge, will be a great Supreme Court justice, as have every one of my colleagues. Nancy, I applaud your arrival to this court. We are thrilled to be joined by an exceptional jurist. All who know you attest that your work is seasoned with humility, humanity, intelligence, and an empathetic capacity to understand different perspectives. Congratulations to you. That's all.
Governor, we're putting it here. It says Philip Scott on it, so. There was one other thing that Nancy's colleagues commented on that she will be bringing to the court. Shoes. Yes, for those of you who know Judge Waples, she will bring lots and lots of shoes. Now, Greg's happy about that because it clears up space to put in a workout room or something else at the house. In addition to her duties on the trial court and working with staff and other judges, Judge Waples has worked in boards, committees to further the interests of justice. She's developed personal and professional relationships in each of those endeavors. It's my pleasure to introduce one of those individuals with whom she's developed such a relationship. It is the Executive Director of Racial Equity for the state of Vermont, Ms. Susanna Davis.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes, members of the court, Governor. So I prepared some remarks for today, and the deeper into it I got, I realized it was starting to feel a little more like one of those irreverent retirement party speeches. So we filed that one away, and we'll just resurrect it the next time we're all gathered here in this room for next week. So instead today, I would just like to talk to you about three things. And actually, I need to talk to you about three things 3 times, because I actually want to tell you about 9 things. But if I had told you that up front, you would have lost focus and zoned out. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 things repeatedly. First, the person we are here to acknowledge today, the woman of the hour. Today, she is 3 things simultaneously, or 3 people. She is Judge Waples of the Superior Court, known and respected among colleagues, skilled in her craft, gifted, as the Chief Justice said. Today, she is also Justice Waples, at least she will be when Governor reads the magic words. And today and every day, she remains Nancy. And that is the rascal we're here to discuss today. Because you see, being a judge is like being a vessel, like being a container. You're a vessel for information. You have to know what's binding and what's persuasive. You have to know what Section 3 of the UCC says about bills of sale. You have to know the intricate details of your craft, yes. But you're also a vessel for your human self. It is so often the case that we forget public servants are humans too. And because of that, we bring with us all of our personal experiences, our lived experiences, our triumphs and successes, our insecurities, our doubts, our failures. All of that runs with us in everything that we do. And so as we think about the Nancy within the robe, the Nancy who is simultaneously Judge Waples and Justice Waples and mom and wife and daughter, it is so important that we honor the fact that the lived experience and the humanity we are adding to our ranks on our court is coming from perspectives that to date have not been seen on this court in this state. When we bring our lived experience, when we bring our full and true and authentic selves to our work, it provides lenses through which previous courts have not yet looked. And that's exciting. It's exciting for residents and visitors to the state of Vermont, because we know that legal issues are not limited to those who can call themselves Vermonters. The composition of our courts, the composition of our state government absolutely impacts anyone who lives, works, learns, plays, or visits Vermont. I want to talk to you about 3 things. The economist Max Rosen said 3 things are true at the same time. Number 1, the world is much better. Number 2, the world is awful. And number 3, the world can be much better. And he's right. In many ways, things are so much better and brighter than they used to be. As a woman-identified person, a brown person, as a person who's a member of a generation that everyone seems to dislike, I can attest to that. In a lot of ways, things are better. And yet, in too many ways, they still aren't. Don't know if you've noticed, but it's hard out here. But we have to keep our eye trained on that 3rd point, that the world can be much better. And in order for that to happen, it requires that we make it better. And in order for the we to make it better, we has to reflect all of us. And so as we commemorate this historic event, where for the first time on this court, we is a little bit more inclusive and a little bit more reflective, not just of Vermont as we know it, not just of the rich and long history that the state has, but reflective of Vermont's present and most importantly, reflective of her future. The Vermont that has grown and been shaped under our feet and all around us is gorgeous. It's beautiful. And it's getting more gorgeous and more beautiful the more that we choose justice, the more that we choose equity, and the more that we choose to be welcoming, and not just through well-painted signs and well-manicured visitor center lawns. Choosing to be more welcoming by making sure that all of our institutions reflect equity at their core. And that is hard. It is hard for a lot of people, which is why it took actual laws to create this job. However, when we see the good and the benefit that justice and that equity have for all people, the multiplier effect that it brings, the benefits to population, demographics, economy, arts and culture, when we see all of the positives that benefit absolutely everybody, it's impossible for us not to pursue it more and more authentically. So, yes, the world is awful, and yet it can be so much better. And part of us making it better as a state is making sure that our leaders, our decision makers, and those who are in positions of deliberation and authority are really reflective of the state we want to build. I want to talk to you about three things. Being judgy, being a judge, and having good judgment. And I hope you'll stick with me because the Chief Justice gave you a beautiful academic speech, and this is just going to be all over the place, and we're going to have to accept that. We're all good at the first one, being judgy. It's baked into American life. But being judgy, judging others, is neither our place nor our best work. It doesn't mean that we're right. It means that we made decisions and assumptions and arrived at conclusions that may or may not be well-reasoned, but no one's really checking our math on it, so we do it and we move on. It's not the same as being a judge. For starters, you get paid at that point to be judgy. However, with that privilege comes an immense responsibility. That your judginess be well-reasoned, that it be focused, that it be contemplative of all surrounding circumstances, and that it serve the public interest and the individual interest. It is an impossible balance. None get it perfect. Few get it right most of the time. But striving for it is the key. Dedication to it is the key. And I think we can all agree that to date, Judge Waples has demonstrated long commitment to exactly that. Being a judge is different from being judgy because of that third element, which is having good judgment. And it's not always easy to identify it or to be able to discern it. It's one of those things that you know it when you see it. It reminds me of the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Does anyone here know the difference between knowledge and, of course you do. Knowledge is knowing that botanically the tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. And for judges, this is tricky because law is not like, say, the sciences. In the sciences, we are taught to question what we think we know always. That you don't know if you're right. How do you know? Explore and experiment. Be willing to admit when we've made mistakes, correct them and learn new things. But law is different. It compels us to adhere to precedent, to do things how we have always done them because we have always done them that way. And again, as a woman-identified person, as a person of color, as a child of immigrants, that makes it hard for a lot of us. It took 3 constitutional amendments for me to be able to vote in this country. And so when we think about the ways in which we're shaping our future and our state's future, so much of that rests on the shoulders of those with good judgment, those who know when what we've been doing is the right course so we can stay the course, and those who have the courage to say, perhaps we're not seeing everything. Perhaps it's time for a change. And the understanding to be able to make that call, particularly when you have colleagues beside you who can be supportive, who can help you be well-reasoned, and who do not stoop to the same levels of discourse that the Chief Justice spoke about just moments ago. So, it appears that in our awful world that can be much better and that is much better, amid judgy people and judges and those with good judgment, which is 3 separate circles of a Venn diagram, and between the Judge Waples, the Justice Waples, and the Nancy, we are now here in observance of something that, as the Chief Justice said, is so ordinary, procedural, logistical. There's tape on the floors. This is so regular. And yet, it is so irregular in such an incredible way. It is not lost on any of us that in the last few weeks, at the state level and the federal level, the nominations and appointments and confirmations of people in the judiciary has been cascading firsts. In Washington, the district, in Washington, the county, we are seeing impressive firsts, and they are happening in the year of 2022. It has taken so long. But like the poet said, slow motion better than no motion. But also, please, let's pick up the pace. So with that, I will leave you. I do just want to extend deepest congratulations to Nancy, who is a member of the Racial Equity Advisory Panel created by the same statute that created the executive director's role. Judge Waples has been an amazing member of the panel, a wonderful person from whom to seek advice. I remember the first time I ever met with her in her office in the Lamoille County Courthouse, which is a gorgeous building. Not more gorgeous than this one, Chief Justice. And I walked into her office, and the first thing I thought was, this is nice. I can get used to this. And the second thing I thought was, oh, there's so many shoes. And the third thing I thought was, I feel so at home here, because she is so just warm and kind and generous. And it is thrilling and a huge relief to know that that is the sort of person who will now be sitting on our state Supreme Court. So, felicidades, enhorabuena, congratulations to La Jueza Nancy Waples.
So if everyone is keeping track, that's now 2 mentions of shoes. There is a change in our program today. So Ms. Nolan, we're going to hold you off for 1 second if that's okay. One of Judge Waples' closest friends was not able to be here to speak today. I believe she's watching, but I know she sent some comments that she'd like read. And as Ringo Starr and the Beatles would sing, I get by with a little help from my friends. And so I thought it would be fitting if we ask one of Judge Waples' friends, Justice Carroll, to read the comments from Joan Sullivan Higgins. Justice Carroll?
You didn't think I was talking today, did you? And as far as shoes go, I never wear heels going down those stairs until today. So I did it all for you. So I am really honored to read some sentiments from Joan Sullivan Higgins, who is a very, very good friend of Nancy's, and I understand is watching today. Joan wrote to Nancy, "We met in law school at St. John's in 1984, but our friendship blossomed while we were assistant district attorneys at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Nancy's striking beauty, fashion sense, warm smile, and hearty laugh belied the serious lawyer underneath. She was a font of knowledge and applied her legal acumen in both the Appeals Bureau and the Trial Division. Nancy's appointment in the Vermont Supreme Court is the next logical step in the career of a dedicated public servant intent on doing the right thing. I couldn't be prouder of her. But I am not the only Sullivan proud of Nancy's achievements. My recently deceased father, who served as a New York appellate division judge from 1975 through 2005, and who closely followed Nancy's rise within the Vermont legal community, learned of Nancy's appointment a few days before his passing. At his direction, the robe he once wore was given to Nancy, a symbolic passing of the torch from one storied justice to a soon-to-be pillar of Vermont's highest court. The citizens of Vermont are fortunate to have Nancy as a member to the Supreme Court, just as I am to have Nancy as a friend. Joan Sullivan Higgins.
Now, Judge Waples made friends, as we all know, very easily. And there was a time when she was an attorney in private practice as a defense attorney. And if I'm not mistaken, she became friends with a federal prosecutor at that time. And their friendship continued on, even after that prosecutor became her husband's boss. It is my pleasure to introduce the former United States Attorney for the District of Vermont, Christina Nolan.
Thank you. This will be the irreverent retirement speech. My partner Jill, who's hiding in the back there, and I are honored to be here today. I'm honored to be invited. I'm honored to have been asked to speak along with the governor and all the other distinguished speakers in the room. I'm also honored to have been asked to serve as Nancy's reference during her application process. And most of all, I'm honored to call her a dear friend. So just to recap, I got invited to Nancy's swearing in. I got asked to speak at Nancy's swearing in. I got asked to serve as her reference during her judicial application. And she's my friend. And that's all I want on my tombstone. What else is there? I always say, I love it when the right person gets the job. And Nancy, you are absolutely the right person to serve as Associate Justice of the Vermont Supreme Court. And Governor, I commend you for once again making an outstanding decision in the best interests of Vermont in selecting Nancy for this role. Her unique and diverse background, legal experience, temperament, and legal ability make her ready to administer equal justice under the law and to do a fantastic job by Vermonters every day. Now, just speaking to her legal ability, I am a member of the Vermont Bar. I am not practicing as much as usual these days, but I am a member still. And I was previously an assistant U.S. attorney. Now, Nancy has an impeccable reputation throughout the Vermont Bar. But speaking from personal experience, every case I had against Nancy, when I was a federal prosecutor and she was a defense attorney in federal court, she beat me. Started to get a little old after a while. And defense attorneys, don't as often prevail in federal court because the government usually has a ton of strong evidence and the law is pretty well settled and arguably it's favorable to the prosecution. But she beat me anyway. And every time she beat me, she did it with collegiality and respect, and that's all we can hope for in the adversarial process. It was a pleasure to work with her. Of course, she's got years of experience on the state bench, and her work as a judge is every bit as highly regarded as her work as a trial lawyer. And that is work she did as a prosecutor, a defense attorney, and a civil practitioner. So she's literally seen the courtroom from all sides and all angles. She's seen it from the bench. She's a tremendous lawyer. She's a tremendous judge. She's got a sharp legal mind, and she's a problem solver. Simply put, she will make a tremendous associate justice. I celebrate, along with everyone else, the historic nature of this appointment and the diversity that Justice Waples will bring to the court. And I am going to get a little ahead of the governor and call her justice. We need diversity of perspective and background in leadership and throughout our institutions. And today, we get it. And I was so glad to see Nancy's appointment announced at the same time as the historic nomination of Justice Brown Jackson. It was a great moment for Vermont and for America. The story of Nancy's upbringing will move you to tears, and it will be talked about today, and it's been written about in the papers as it should be, has been talked about today. She shared with me the stories of racial bias and racial attacks she's endured because she's Asian, and unfortunately, not all of these stories are dated stories. Her time as a lawyer and as a judge has put her in contact with other folks who have endured bias, discrimination, and other forms of fundamental unfairness. She is prepared to administer equal justice, not just in the academic sense, but because she is personally and intimately familiar with the scourge of inequality. And we can trust her to do all she can to apply the law fairly, faithfully, and with an unflinching eye for justice. I wanted to share something else about Nancy, and this goes not just to her judicial temperament, but also to a sort of an intangible quality, and it's been alluded to by others. Nancy treats people well, all people well. She treats all people well all of the time, even me, and I can be difficult. It's true. I wish I could say the same for more people in leadership. In the reference form they gave me to fill out in connection with the application process, they asked the following question, quote, "Have you ever seen this applicant be arrogant, condescending, or rude? What happened?" And I read that, I sort of got upset and defensive. And then I calmed down and I responded simply, quote, "Judge Waples is incapable of such behavior." And it's true. People who meet her for the first time ask me, "Is that really what she's like?" I'm so used to awful people. They say, "Can she really be that good?" And I say, yes, that's really what she's like. And to me, it's incredibly important that a justice have this kind of heart, because it means she will treat the litigants with respect and fairness. She will work very well with the other members of the court and always respect their viewpoints and unify the court. And she will always bear in mind and be sensitive to how her decisions will affect people in their everyday lives. Nancy's family members are a reflection of her fundamental goodness. Her sons are exemplary people, and they were clearly raised very, very well. Graham and I worked together at my law firm when he was a summer associate. Graham and I have a 271-day snap streak on Snapchat. And if you don't know the significance, ask somebody young or someone immature like me. 271. Lane is also a man of incredible character and talent, and I don't know him yet quite as well as Graham, but I'm coming for you next. Nancy's husband, Greg, has been a dear friend of mine and a mentor of mine since I started at the U.S. Attorney's Office in 2010. Greg is an incredible lawyer, and like Nancy, a person of integrity and fundamental goodness. In Nancy's reference check form, they ask, quote, "Is there anything else that you think we should know about this applicant?" Now, open-ended questions like that are dangerous to put to me, because I can talk a blue streak and I could sing Nancy's praises endlessly. But I restrained myself and answered simply, "She makes the best dumplings you will ever taste." The best dumplings you will ever taste anywhere in the world. And I'm not sure if that was the most professional way to approach the question. But it's true. And when Jill and I are hungry, we think about going to Nancy's house. So just know that among all the other wonderful qualities I've listed, she is also an amazing cook. And I'm going to wrap up by congratulating you, Justice Waples, your family, and indeed all of Vermont on this historic appointment. It's a great day for Vermont in an era where good news is desperately needed. This is some of the most welcome and uplifting news I've heard in a long time, maybe ever. So cheers, my friend.
The dumplings are delicious. That's true. We just heard Ms. Nolan mention family is very important to Judge Waples. Greg, Lane, Graham, the three of them are her foundation. And you're going to hear from two of them in a moment, the young ones. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I introduced them because they're going to be speaking together as the Smothers Brothers? And then I looked at them and realized they have no idea what I'm talking about. Such is aging. I'll just introduce them as Lane and Graham, or as I like to call them, Judge Waples' favorite oldest son and Judge Waples' favorite younger son.
Here come the millennials with their iPads. Thank you, Judge Zone. Good afternoon, Governor, Chief Justice, Justices, and friends and family. I do have to say that Judge Zone failed to mention one thing. Because I am the oldest son, I am the most important son. I want to say it is a truly humbling experience to be speaking in front of all of you today, such an accomplished group. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for all being here and supporting my mom in this historic moment for this beautiful state that I still call home. When thinking about what I wanted to say, I knew I would focus on what it was like growing up in the Waples household. I couldn't help but ruminate about how I actually didn't want to be a lawyer growing up. I think one of the greatest gifts that my parents gave to me was that they didn't try to influence our career aspirations. In fact, my mom regularly discouraged us from becoming lawyers. However, like a moth to a flame, here I am at the end of my legal education as a 3L. It wasn't until college and a bad grade in biology, which my parents handled very well, that I really considered a career in the law for the first time. I know I made the right choice, but I know I made that choice because I came to it organically. During the summer leading up to my first year of law school, I always wondered whether growing up in a family of lawyers would give me an advantage in some way. Would one of those random dinner table talks unlock criminal law for me during an exam? Would I be ahead of my peers because I kind of sort of knew what a pleading was? I got my answer at orientation. Part of it involved a crash course on some of the important precepts of the legal world, such as the structure of New York's court system, where their trial courts are strangely called the Supreme Court. I thought about making a joke about this, but I've heard so many over the last 3 years, and I've yet to laugh at one, so I decided to spare you all. I distinctly recall a professor explaining to my section the importance of stare decisis and precedent. Recalling my childhood, I couldn't help but furrow my brow. After all, at least in our household, and as my mom always said, there is no such thing as precedent and stare decisis, and her mind might change tomorrow. However, the greatest part about growing up in a family of lawyers was that I was encouraged to never stop learning. Ultimately, I think this is why I gravitated towards the law. There is always something new to master. My mom perfectly embodies this, and it was a true privilege to watch her not only grow as a person, but as a judge, as I was undergoing my own academic journey. Despite having only practiced criminal law before ascending to the bench, I watched my mom learn and master both the family and civil dockets in Vermont. I also watched her learn how to use Microsoft Teams during the pandemic. However, most importantly, despite all of her growth, my mom never lost the kindness and compassion that makes her a great person and an even better jurist. I know she always strove to guarantee that no matter who the parties were in front of her, whether they were represented or pro se, or regardless of the result, anyone who appeared before her knew that they had their day in court. As her son, I do not know what that feels like. Mom, I am so proud of you, and I am continuously impressed by what you have accomplished as a woman of color, a lawyer, a judge, and most importantly, my mom. I hope that one day I can achieve a fraction of what you have. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chief Justice and Justices. May it please the court. My name is Graham Waples, and I represent, wait a second, that was my moot court competition speech from 2 weeks ago. I must have mixed it up with my swearing-in speech. Moot court was over Zoom, this is in person, and this is a lot scarier. Anyway, we're here today on a momentous occasion. I wonder if my dad will finally be able to retire on Mom's new Supreme Court salary. While growing up, my father often acted as a trial court judge when evaluating my brother and mine's requests. But my mother, acting as the Supreme Court, almost always reversed or vacated his decisions. Mom employed a complex logical balancing test to the lower court's judgment, which could be reduced to this underlying theory. But Mom says, goes. I remember once my father lamented, quoting former Vermont Supreme Court Justice, sorry, I lost my place. I remember my father once lamented, quoting former Vermont Supreme Court Chief Justice Franklin Billings, often reversed, but never wrong. Mom, you have been such an inspiration to us both, and maybe a little too inspirational, since Lane and I both ended up at law school, despite your best efforts at persuading us otherwise. Jokes aside, your dedication and commitment to public service, not only by interpreting and upholding the law to protect the community while on the bench, but also in your defense and prosecutorial careers before, was my main inspiration in pursuing a profession in the law. Growing up and seeing you on both sides of the courtroom showed me the importance of fairness and reasonableness, two traits which you embody, and two traits that more people in the law profession should strive to hold at the standard which you possess. I have no doubt that this commitment to the community and your inherent character will thrive on the highest court in the state. You're the most amazing person I've met. Your fortitude, bravery, intelligence, determination, vision, and above all else, your kindness have shown that anyone in this country can achieve incredible success, respect, and prestige in whatever they set their mind out to become through hard work and perseverance. Your childhood and adolescence is evidence beyond a reasonable doubt of it. You've shown not only to me and Lane, but also to any other minority citizen of all generations of what is possible. And you have shown the pinnacle of what being a good person can allow you to do and to become. I'm so proud of what you've done so far, and I cannot wait to see what you still have yet to achieve. I know Pawpaw is watching over you right now, sharing all of our exact same thoughts. While the first minority woman on the Supreme Court is a long time coming, there's not a more deserving person that should assume that historic role. I love you so much, and I'm so incredibly proud of you. Congratulations, Justice Nancy Waples. If there are no further questions, that concludes my section of the argument.
After listening to everything today, I'm reminded of the Kenny Chesney song, She's Got It All. But Judge Waples is missing one thing, the oath. It is my pleasure to introduce the 82nd Governor of the state of Vermont to administer the oath, Phil Scott.
Well, thank you very much. And I was in the Senate before I became Lieutenant Governor and then Governor. It was about 20 years ago. I see John Campbell here. We were freshmen together. Senator Nicka, I believe, was in the House at the time. But there was a House member from the Northeast Kingdom, and he famously said in his Vermont vernacular, he said, "Mr. Speaker," says, "it's not that everything hasn't been said. It's just that not everyone has had a chance to say it." And that's what I feel like today. We're going to hear the summation here. So good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. It's an honor to join Chief Justice Ryber as well as Judge Waples' soon-to-be colleagues on the Supreme Court, her family and friends, she has many, on this very special day. Now, the last time I had this honor was in December of 2019, when I swore in Justice Cohen. I'm sure we all would agree that seems like a lifetime ago. Not long after that, our whole world changed due to the pandemic. So it's especially meaningful for all of us to be here in person with the newly renovated Supreme Court that we're all here to see. Appointing a justice to the Supreme Court is one of the most important things any governor can do. I'm honored to say this is my third Supreme Court appointment. As I stand here in this historic courtroom, I'm again struck by the great significance of this constitutional duty. Vermonters look to our state's highest court to follow the Constitution, ensure justice, and protect our individual rights and liberties. The judiciary protects vital separation of powers principles, acts without fear of powerful interests, and shows no favoritism. Every Vermonter deserves to know those entrusted to protect our laws are fair, impartial, hardworking, and understand the challenges facing their everyday lives. I believe Judge Waples possesses those qualities and more, and is the right person at the right time for the Supreme Court. The unanimous bipartisan support she received from the Senate demonstrates that as well. Aren't we lucky to be Vermonters and to be here in Vermont, where we treat others with respect and civility? And looking at the portraits of past justices as I walked in, I'm also reminded of the historic nature of this particular appointment. As you all know, and what you've heard, Judge Waples brings with her the education, intellect, and experience needed to excel as a Supreme Court justice. She's already served the state with distinction, earning the respect of her colleagues, members of the bar, and those who appeared before her. She's also known for her optimism, energy, integrity, generosity, and I guess dumplings as well. As she joins this court, she's committed to ensuring civility and respect in all she does, which is something we're in such desperate need of in today's world. As many of you have heard me say, qualities of character, competence, commitment, and chemistry are essential to all the appointments I make. But Nancy wouldn't be the person she is today if not for her impressive personal story, which many of today's speakers have talked about. Her life story and experience give her perspective that only add to her qualifications for this role. As the daughter of Chinese immigrants who fled the communist revolution in China, she has unique insight into the meaning of the rule of law and the protections and freedoms of the Constitution that unfortunately we sometimes take for granted. The struggle and sacrifice both she and her family have faced brought her to this very moment where she's a pioneer, breaking barriers of race in our court system and inspiring others to reach their highest goals and potential. As President Biden said, when he recently nominated Justice Jackson, which for the record was after we appointed Waples.
The world falls.
But President Biden said, for too long, our government, our courts have been America. Judge Waples will be a justice who reflects not only the talents of a well-qualified candidate, but the possibilities that are open to all. In the oath Nancy is about to take, she'll swear to do equal right and justice to all persons, which is one of the greatest responsibilities of any government. For Nancy and her family, this oath has special meaning, and I'm very pleased to make this official today. So now I'll ask Judge Waples to come forward to take the oath of office.
My son is really.
That's perfect. Okay. All right. I, Nancy Jer Waples, do solemnly swear
I, Nancy Jer Waples, do solemnly swear
that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not directly or indirectly
and that I will not directly or indirectly
do any act or thing
do any act or thing
injurious to the Constitution or government thereof.
injurious to the Constitution or government thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Nancy Jer Waples, do solemnly swear
I, Nancy Jer Waples, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office
that I will faithfully execute the office
of Associate Justice of the Supreme Court for the state of Vermont,
of Associate Justice
of the Supreme Court
of the Supreme Court
for the state
for
of
the
Vermont,
state of Vermont,
and will therein do equal right and justice to all persons,
and will therein do equal right and justice for all persons,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the state of Vermont
that I will support the Constitution of the state of Vermont
and the Constitution of the United States of America.
and the Constitution of the United States of America.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Justice Waples.
Thank you. Is this the pen that was on the floor?
This was the one Justice Ryber stepped all over.
You stepped all over? Okay.
And I'm going to do this now because I believe we almost forgot. So I'm going to do this now while we're still here.
Does it work? Right there? All right, thank you, Governor. Okay. All right. Oh, I didn't reach that. Oh, you did your pen. I'll keep it. Thank you. Thank you, Governor.
Oops.
Well, I get to keep the governor's pen, so I'm very excited about that. Governor Scott, justices, judges, family and friends, members of the bar and legislature, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Governor Scott, for the tremendous honor of this appointment to the Supreme Court. I hope to prove worthy of the trust and confidence you have placed in me. Thank you, Chief Justice Ryber, for your warm welcome. When I think of you, the word that immediately comes to mind is kindness. It is a simple word, but essential to our survival as a community. And as the leader of our judicial community, you have led us with kindness and integrity through the most difficult 2 years of the pandemic, as we fulfilled our responsibilities to public service and the administration of justice under our state and federal constitutions. Thank you, Chief Superior Judge Zone, who I think of as a true Renaissance man. He is a crooner who rivals Sinatra, a DIY home remodeler, and a judge's judge. I remember my first trial as a judge. During jury deliberations around midnight, I got a challenging note from the jury. I wasn't quite sure how to handle it, and I called you, and you answered on the first ring and helped me with the response. You have always been generous with your wisdom and time. Thank you, Susanna and Christina, two passionate and talented lawyers whom I met in different professional settings and who became my friends. I do not know anyone more organized than Susanna, who I am convinced does not sleep. And I met Christina 11 years ago when I was a criminal defense attorney, and she was a young and new AUSA. And why we don't always see eye to eye, but why we always don't see eye to eye, especially when I'm wearing my heels. She subsequently became my husband's boss and is a generous mentor to our sons. Often I would not know where my children were, and I would ask Susanna, oh, not Susanna, I'd ask Christina, where are my children? And as you heard, she is on some Snapchat forum with them. Thank you, my sons, Lane and Graham. I'm so proud of these adult children who aren't children, I know, but they'll always be my kids. They're so different, and now they are out there in the world discovering themselves and their voices. We think we are here to teach them, and of course, they are the ones teaching us. Lane will graduate this year from Brooklyn Law School, Ms. Johnson's alma mater, and will join a large law firm in New York City. We told him, we love you, but we'll never see you again. Graham will be clerking for a friend of ours from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, now Judge Michael Kitces of the Brooklyn Supreme Court. This year, in the Wexler National Moot Court Competition, Graham was 4th best oralist. That didn't surprise us because he was born arguing. I'm blessed with a supportive and inspirational husband. Those of you who know Greg may think he is emotionally mysterious and stoic and perfectly complements my nature to overanalyze. In truth, he has always done my worrying for me, and he has always dreamed out loud for me. One of his best virtues is his tolerance. Over the years, he has let me adopt 30 adult cats and dogs from various humane societies and rescue organizations throughout Vermont. These critters have brought an abundance of joyful chaos into our home. I have called Vermont home since 1991, and I have witnessed with pleasure Vermont's increasing racial and ethnic diversity. My life has been enormously impacted by growing up in two very different cultures. My parents were immigrants who fled the communist revolution in China, and I grew up working side by side with my 3 siblings and parents in our Chinese restaurant to earn a living. The restaurant was open 364 days of the year. The only day we were closed, Thanksgiving, has become my favorite holiday. My siblings and I worked 7 days a week. After school, we'd head to the restaurant and work until 10 p.m. Days off from school, holidays, and vacations were there. By sheer force of will, my family succeeded. I grew up with the dust of honest labor on my hands. My father and late mother faced many challenges with great courage and integrity so that their children could pursue their American dreams. My family had the quintessential immigrant experience. My parents brought us here at an early age, seeking opportunities for all of us. Their ambitions were our ambitions, their dreams were our dreams, and our successes were relished by my mom and dad. I miss my siblings, Carol, Eileen, and Sydney, who could not be here with me today. Our 96-year-old father, Roy, had an episode earlier this week which made it imprudent for him to travel. I'm grateful to my siblings for staying with him to watch over his care. I speak to my father every day, and when I spoke to him today, he again shared his happiness about my appointment, and he asked me to convey a personal message to you, Governor Scott. Tôi ưu tiên anh người nói phải phân công, phải phân công, phải phân công, tôi có khép bỏ, tôi nào tôi có, người phải sĩ, all of them lấy ưu tiên sai này. So, Governor. So, Governor, I think I once offered to translate for you anytime, and this might be one of those times. And my father's message is this. My wife, Susie, and I had to beat a lot of odds to make sure our children would have the opportunities to live different lives than ours. We raised our children with grit. We always told them, when opportunities happen, be brave and bold in your choices. Governor Scott, thank you for being brave and bold in yours. I now have a new home in this court, and to the justices and the entire staff of the Supreme Court, you've welcomed me so warmly and graciously, and it is a distinct honor to be in your midst. It's a place I'm going to love to come to every day. And to my colleagues on the bench, Chief Justice Ryber, Justice Eaton, Justice Carroll, and Justice Cohen, I want you to know that as a justice, a wife, and a mother, I am firmly committed to the rule of law. And so for the past 7 years, I have loved my work as a judge because it allowed me to serve the public interest and perform justice in individual cases. Being a judge in a court of general jurisdiction has given me the opportunity to learn unfamiliar areas of the law. And how fortunate was I to learn from the deep bench of brilliant jurists who preside in our superior courts. I especially owe a deep debt of gratitude to the following judges, whom I have been lucky enough to call my mentors: Mary Teachout, Helen Torr, Brian Grierson, Jim Crescetti, Tom Devine, and Karen Carroll before she became Justice Carroll. I've also had the privilege to work in different courthouses throughout Vermont. I've served in 8 of the 14 counties of our great state and have come to know their communities through the parties, attorneys, and the judiciary staff who day in and day out perform their jobs with dedication and grace, often working with folks who are going through the most difficult time of their lives. This new privilege to join the Supreme Court gives me a chance to serve and dispense justice in new and different ways. The duty of a justice is, of course, to apply the laws that have been written by the Vermont legislature, the Constitution that has been adopted by the citizens of Vermont, the body of jurisprudence contained in 230 years of Vermont reports, and the Constitution and laws of the United States. However, it is equally the duty of a justice to interpret those laws and constitutions. Indeed, it is an extraordinary responsibility, and I cherish this opportunity. 7 years ago, when I was sworn in as a Superior Court judge, was one of the proudest days of my life. My late mother, who came up to the ceremony in a snowstorm, was equally proud. But with characteristic immigrant reserve, she reminded me not to take myself too seriously. Remember, Nancy, she said, you work for the people. Work hard and don't let them down. I try to heed my mother's words every day I sit on the bench. I am not always successful, but whatever mistakes I may have made have not come from indifference or lack of effort. I will learn and grow every day I sit on the bench, and that process will continue for as long as I have the privilege to wear that black robe. And I was surprised by Justice Carroll reading the message from my dear friend Joan. Her father who was an early mentor of mine, who subsequently, I think, became a reference for every job for myself and then for my boys, married Greg and I, has the distinction of being the longest serving associate justice in the state of New York on the Appellate Division First Department, and that is 30 years prior to serving on the trial bench. And when he passed, I was just overwhelmed at the gift of his robe. So he was a fine Irishman and a little bigger, and I will have to alter his robe, but I look forward to wearing that and joining my colleagues on the bench. I am deeply conscious of the confidence and trust that has been placed in me, and I'm committed to doing my very best for Vermont as its newest Associate Justice. Thank you.
Congratulations, Justice Waples, and thank you for being here today. Wait a minute. Something's missing. There's an empty seat. Justice Waples, would you please take your seat on the court?
Oh, it's a big chair.
The Supreme Court of the State of Vermont. Court is adjourned.